and you know it.
With a tear in my eye,
the cream of the crop.
Acknowledge me.
Well, hello. It is episode 395 of Top Rope Nation. I am your host for this Sunday morning, Jesse Velasquez, and flanked by Mr. Justin Joint. How are you on this lovely Sunday morning?
I am officially, they just don't make them like they used to, years old, because I have found myself complaining about things falling apart a lot lately. My work boots are lucky to last a year when they used to last years. My socks are constantly getting holes in them. I don't feel, obviously that has always been the case, but it seems like I'm lucky to get like a few months out of them nowadays. And I was having some mic issues before we started. I've got some static going on and I haven't had this damn thing for very long. So I'm kind of cranky today, Jesse.
Mm-hmm. As we said off air, crankiness has been kind of flanking this entire Sunday, and it shouldn't be a cranky Sunday. It is the first Sunday of September, which means, as you see in the bottom right-hand corner there, it is the opening, technically, of American football.
That's right. I know my kid is very pumped for the 49ers game. So I'll probably be watching that today, and I need to fit in some SummerSlam 1990 also, because we're going to be recording soon.
Yes, we are. Let's get that out of the way right now. Patrons, thank you so much for your support. Patreon.com/TopRopeNation. You voted for August. Their classics will be SummerSlam 1990. I'm officially halfway through it. It has flown. This is a very fast card so far. I have not gotten into the second half yet, but I'm super excited to get through the second half. Justin, do you have, I guess we'll give people a sneak peek. Do you have any memories of SummerSlam 1990 at all?
It is probably my most rented pay-per-view of all time. I used to rent it all the time as a kid. It's either that or one of the early WrestleManias. Love SummerSlam 1990.
I could guess the reasons why, but again, that's why we tease here on the flagship. Carl, we're with you as well. I want to talk about that. The socks and constantly buying new ones. I just bought, I think, a 12-pack from Costco maybe 3 months ago, the Puma ones, and those things usually hold up. I've had to throw away 3 of the 12 pairs so far in the first 3 months.
It's atrocious. What is going on? We used to be a country.
That could be a discussion for another day as well. Niall, it's good to see you in the chat. My American football team does not play until tomorrow night. Ditto for the co-host who is missing this morning, Ryan Drosty. We are going head-to-head tomorrow night in Soldier Field, where I am...
Nation Derby.
Yeah, that is correct. I am going to reverse jinx it just like I did last year. The Bears are going to win 20-17.
Bears are winning?
20-17.
Oh, interesting.
It's going to be a defensive struggle. I feel that both defenses have rebuilt, especially I know Minnesota has. And going through Bears Over Beers with Ryan Drosty, his other football podcast, I have learned that the Bears have also rebuilt their defense just a touch. So, and 2 inexperienced quarterbacks.
That's what was going to be my point. Is this is going to be a game of we find out who these quarterbacks are, if JJ's the real deal, and what kind of strides Caleb can make.
I think
no more excuses for him. No more excuses.
No, especially in this day and age where you need something now. Like your return on investment is it has to be like within 2, 3, 4 games.
Yeah,
you notice it with other franchises and things where coaches now get fired after a year. When before it was like 3, 4 years, it's how long this build's going to take, and then we'll make our decision from there. It's just
becoming like the Premier League.
Oh, yeah. I heard some Tottenham Spurs clutter yesterday. Did something major happen or a day or two ago?
Yes, their longtime chairman Daniel Levy, quote unquote, stepped down. I would also say probably pushed out the door. I am reserving my feelings on that to see what the club does going forward, because I am not as down on him as many of the fan base is.
Okay. So just like everything else, it's a wait and see approach for your team.
That's for me. Yep. He was the chairman for 25 years, just about. Did a lot of good things. I think his legacy will be that beautiful state of the art stadium that he got built. But for me, he was more annoying than bad, is how I'll put it.
Okay. We can deal with annoying, specifically with fan bases, as long as everything is running smoothly.
That's right.
So here we go. Let's get the WWE out of the way. We have a lot of AEW to talk about. I think the lead here is pretty big, specifically in the circles, with AJ Lee on September the 5th of 2025. So 4 years to the day that her husband, CM Punk, made his in-ring return against Darby Allin. She made her return to television after 10 years and 5 months away from the promotion. I have some things to say, like some that are okay and some that are on the negative side, much like it is with World Wrestling Entertainment these days. Justin, do you have any thoughts on the return of AJ Lee to help out her husband in this storyline with Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch?
Congrats to anybody who watches WWE and is excited for it. Kudos to you. It is not my bag. I've just seen so much stuff online touting AJ Lee as a generational talent, and that was just not my experience watching her, because I was watching at the time, and I would say by today's wrestling standards, she's pretty average in the ring. At the time, she was more exceptional because the quote unquote women's revolution was just about to get started. She left, while Paige was coming in. Becky Lynch and Charlotte and Sasha were all on their way to truly put a stamp on women's wrestling. But I always thought her finisher was really dope. And I think her true impact was her character. She had a interesting character, and she was in some pretty big storylines, specifically with CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. But it just doesn't do much for me. Obviously, I'm not really a big WWE fan, but I think the celebration of her return is kind of far outseeds her actual impact on the industry.
It's who she's associated with, I think, is specifically where the impact is kind of lauded. She's associated, of course, with CM Punk. So obviously being her husband. Yes. Niall in the chat as well, between AJ Lee and Nikki Bella. It's 2014 all over again. We'll highlight that one. No, you're getting zero arguments from me. 2014 was a decent year for World Wrestling Entertainment, I felt, with WrestleMania 30. And then with Daniel Bryan being coronated in the middle, it just started to go downhill about halfway, with the Shield and the Wyatts still being they're omnipresent in the promotion for about a year and a half. So things were still kind of looking on the up and up. But now we're looking at 11 years later. We see 2/3 of the members of the Shield are still in the main event talk. And CM Punk has left and returned, or he's left and returned. So I think it's just a matter of, with AJ Lee,
we've got a life, folks. We've got kids in the house.
Sorry about the pause, folks. I have a wonderful 4-year-old son right now who is having the time of his life at this point. No, and then there were reasons that AJ Lee left the promotion in 2015, not just with the support of her husband, who has now returned. And from a hypocritical perspective, we're seeing the same thing with AJ Lee. I know that she's advocated women's rights, emphasis on the word had. And now we're looking at the 2025 landscape with the return of Brock Lesnar just about a month ago. and things that have been going on with Janelle Grant and Vince McMahon and how the company's treated women in the past, I'm not 100% sure if AJ completely supports this. It's all about the paycheck. Any thoughts, Justin?
No, I would agree with you. I mean, I don't know. It's a whole lot of great comment here for anybody watching on YouTube or anything on for Carl here. He's spot on. It says 100% not a generational talent. Her impact as gateway to the current women's division and being around in 2013 to 15 is more correlation than cause. A great point, though she had some impact, not as much as said. But yeah, it's a lot of, to me, it's a lot of revisionist history, which WWE is quite good at.
They're amazing. They're arguably the best, I think, in almost in the world when it comes to revisionist history from a company perspective. Yes, Carl, absolutely. Like I found AJ to be above average, I will say. But here's the thing: now it's been 10 years and 5 months since she's even bothered placing some boots. She's done some stuff behind the scenes, working with WoW for about a year and a half. So, like from a training perspective, I mean, she's obviously taken bumps, but at the same time, when you're coming back to the big stage, that's a totally different animal.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is going to be a tag match, so it's probably just going to be a lot of throwing fists, specifically with Becky Lynch across the ring from her. But the impact, of course, and if the return was in Chicago, Illinois, where I think from an oversaturated market standpoint, they're used to this kind of stuff, and it's in the Rosemont Horizon, which has some of the best acoustics, I think, in the country, just when it comes to magnifying pops.
Have you heard anything? Is this like a short-term deal with her return, or is she going to be around for a while? I haven't heard anything in regards to that.
There was a report this morning, I have not fully investigated it, is that she has signed a longer term deal. So I think that if just going through the article, they'll probably disclose if it's a year, 2, 3, whatever. But I can't see this being longer than 2 years. I think we've been talking about just the women right now, the ones that made the impacts. They're starting to get up there. They're in their late 30s, early 40s. I don't know how long she truly wants to be in the ring, taking so many bumps and adding that on to later on in life and how she's going to feel.
Well, she looks great. I'll give her that much. I would kill for those abs.
That was like, honestly, I think that was the biggest talk that I saw in social media were the abdominal muscles of April Mendez. So yeah, congratulations to her and her return. We'll see how it works out. I don't think WWE is going to get a ginormous return on this. They're obviously trying their hardest to hype this WrestlePalooza card that they're going to be doing on September 20th, which is taking place at night. We'll make a transition right now. AEW's All Out has now moved to the afternoon on that Saturday to obviously stray away from going head to head with World Wrestling Entertainment. Justin, are you in support of the move?
Yes, for the most part. I shouldn't say I love these kind of early afternoon shows. They're much easier to watch rather than staying up, way past my bedtime on a quote unquote school night. So from that aspect, I very much like it. I think it's a good idea business wise for AEW to try to avoid going head to head with WWE. It was very, very effective with All In Texas. Whereas I think WWE hurt themselves way more than it actually hurt AEW. I mean, I'm sure it cost them some buys, and there's certainly going to be fans who, now that they actually have to possibly fork over some money for a WWE pay-per-view, are probably going to skip All Out and just go with WrestlePalooza. But I guess the only thing that bothers me about it was the late change that they changed it, just a few weeks in advance. I know there's a lot of scuttlebutt about like, oh, this could affect, some people who were going to go to the show and watch it, which I kind of have a hard time believing that. I mean, who is showing up that, on day of the show that was going to show up like right at 6 o'clock, Central Time to get to All Out. Whereas, it's basically a 3-4 hour difference. I can't imagine it's that much of an issue, but I like it for me. I think it's probably good for AEW. They're going to have to keep coming up with inventive ways to combat the new strategy from WWE. So I don't know. How about you, Jesse?
I think Niall's making an excellent point in the chat here as well.
Yeah.
With the earlier start in the United States, it's going to mean 7, 8 o'clock at night on a Saturday. So something that we would have seen normally, it'd be an overnight for them. So now you're going to be getting more attention from the European crowds, whereas European crowds wise for the WWE, it'll just be going overnight to watch it or waking up early in the morning. And then also, I think here is a big one. This is some big news. Max is now carrying AEW pay-per-views as of this one coming up here in Toronto, Canada. So if you already have the app, it's going to be an additional $39.99, so a $10 off discount.
Yep.
Not a bad idea. I do not have Max, but go ahead, Justin.
Well, if for those of you who don't have Max, you can pay your normal price for the pay-per-view, $50, and you can get Max, which is personally my favorite streaming service. And then you get all your AEW content from them, that, a great catalog of movies. They still put out tremendous shows. I think I'm actually going to check out Task tonight as their new Sunday night show. So yeah, it's kind of a win-win in my opinion. Now, although I have really enjoyed Amazon Prime's pay-per-view with AEW a lot more than Triller or Bleacher Report. The functions weren't great with those. Prime has been pretty solid, so hopefully Max has everything streamlined and there aren't any issues.
Bleacher Report, yes, that was a little difficult to navigate. Triller, I enjoyed. I've ordered that a few times, and then Amazon Prime, I just used for the first time on AEW All In, and I was a definite fan of it. I think they've gotten ahead of the curve with some NFL live football and such. So, is this going to be the first? No, this isn't going to be the first time at live.
The what now?
Sorry,
you blinked out there.
About live content for HBO Max. This is not going to be the first time because they've been doing AEW Dynamites and collisions and things already.
They actually have a lot of other sports on there too, like cycling and racing and stuff. If you go to their sports section.
Yeah, so I totally think that they're not going to have any issues whatsoever getting this broadcast across.
Do you have any? I kind of hate this topic nowadays, but any thoughts on ratings that are currently in the dumpster for both companies?
I don't necessarily know. I'd have to look back some years. I actually do remember 2021 where AEW was starting to hit stride again with their television ratings. But again, with people cutting the cord on cable and such, football is starting up again, college, pro now here on Sunday and Monday. It's not going to have an effect on Wednesday nights, but if we're looking at Monday and going over to Netflix, no, I don't. I'm starting to think that wrestling is cooling off a little bit when it comes to the nicheness of it all. I'd say worldwide more than anything else with our circles. I just think there's just so many other things going on in the world.
Back to school.
Got back to school was a big one. There was some last minute travel last weekend as well for the kids here, because I know that a lot of schools started on Tuesday here in the state of Minnesota. So I think, and also just the accessibility of watching these shows now. You can just either DVR it if you have USA, you want to watch SmackDown, you can watch it the next morning. It's not must-see television. Ditto, I think, for Max, TNT, and TBS. I have not watched a live AEW Dynamite in I don't know how long. I just go get up the next morning, or when I get home from work on Thursday night, I will catch Dynamite.
It's such a much more complicated thing to evaluate in today's world compared to before, where it is, a lot of this stuff is on streaming, and Netflix and HBO Max aren't exactly the most forthcoming with the viewership. So it's a tough thing to evaluate. And obviously, these companies are okay with the ratings because they're forking over a ton of money for the content. And yeah, Ryan made a great point with, Swerve and Osprey are both gone. So that's obviously, going to affect things. But, they're both like, or at least AEW is still like top 5 of the night for like all programming. So they're still doing well. I'm not too concerned with it. It's the ebbs and flows of viewership, back to school, football's back, so I don't know, it's just a blip on the radar. And I just getting a little weary talking about ratings.
It's not completely irrelevant yet, but like you just said, with all of these deals in place, like Netflix forking over the low end of billions of dollars to carry WWE content, and now with Warner Brothers having forked over, I think they like $300 million a year for AEW for the next 3 to 4. They're very happy with things. I'm sure advertisers are still happy. I'm assuming on TBS and TNT's side of things, they're probably getting the highest ratings of anything on that network.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's why it's just there. It's not time to hit the panic button. We live in a world where WWE can absolutely shit the bed on the John Cena heel turn, which in the moment was very successful, and then eventually just crapped out. And literally the storyline was like, boy, that was a bad idea, John Cena says. And he's just a babyface now. In the past, that would have absolutely hurt a company's bottom line. That would have tanked ratings if that had happened. It would have been a much bigger deal, but it's just not nowadays. It's, again, barely a blip on the radar. It doesn't really affect anything. That just goes to show the size of the company just doesn't matter to fans.
That would be an interesting course of discussion, Justin, as to why storylines these days can be erased like the Men in Black laser button, and fans won't blink when, like you just stated out, like Austin's heel turn back at WrestleMania 17 ended up hurting business for World Wrestling Entertainment moving forward. And Sting and Hogan at Starrcade 97 with the reversal of that decision. Then 1998 WCW started to hit a lull. 3 years later, they were out of business. John Cena's going to retire at the end of the year, but the company's still going to move on because there isn't much else for professional wrestling fans in the United States to go, or they don't care. This is what they watch. This is what they've grew up on. They're perfectly accepting of what's happening elsewhere in WWE. They have AEW if they want to, but for whatever reason, some of them just don't want to gravitate towards that side.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just from being a monopoly for 20 years, and the fans are super loyal. They're more likely to forgive, something like that, which is good for wrestling, I suppose, but it also means that I think the risks that they would have needed to take in the past to rebuild themselves is just they have no incentive to do that anymore.
And the other thing, which Niall pointed out in the chat, with social media being extremely relevant in this day and age of 2025, I saw an excerpt that somewhere in the uptake of like 20 to 30 million people have already seen AJ Lee's return to SmackDown. Okay, well, what effect is that going to have on business moving forward? They don't really go into the X and O's of that, and they don't necessarily care. It's about the views. It's about the content, and that's where the focus is, it seems to be, as opposed to long-term storytelling and such.
They love their pops. I hope they don't run out of them. That'd be a real shame.
They can. Well, I mean, if they can just continue to return Roman Reigns every 3 months, then they don't care.
Oh, that poor guy.
It's true. I mean, with WrestlePalooza and such, we're talking about the All Out and the Wrestlepalooza programming being on the same night. WWE stacking the card to nobody's surprise. We mentioned Becky and Seth going against AJ and CM Punk. I'd say just from a faces perspective, they're stacking the card.
Okay.
Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre. You have potentially John Cena and Brock Lesnar, which again is 2025. This was fine back in 2012. I really enjoyed it in 2004. I just don't know if I want to see it in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are into it, God bless. I, for one, am excited about this All Out card that is coming together. We were speculating weeks ago as to, what direction are they going to take Hangman? And boy, never would have guessed this. My choice was Okada. It felt like there for a moment they were teasing Omega, but it's going to be Hangman versus Kyle Fletcher, which, in my opinion, those two and Takeshita are probably the three best in-ring wrestlers in the world right now. So it's going to be a killer match. There is a little bit of a history with All Out and the challenger for the world title being kind of on the up-and-comer wave. You had Hangman at the first one. He wasn't quite at that main event world champion level yet, but he faced Jericho. There was MJF versus Mox in 2020. Last year, we had Danielson and Jack Perry. So I don't hate it. I do still kind of wish it would have been Okada to keep that spotlight on Hangman in a big way. Whereas now, maybe this match might feel a little bit like an afterthought compared to some of the other big matches on this card.
I don't know if this is the best comparison. I'm going to try and just see what you think. I think there's some similarities, but it's not quite the full blown. Do you think this is kind of like the Survivor Series match 1992 between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels?
Oh, interesting.
Champion versus world champion.
Yeah, in a way, I would say Hangman's way more established as a main eventer than Bret was at the time. But yeah, I definitely see the correlation with Shawn in 92 and Kyle Fletcher now. I think it's pretty obvious that, Shawn Michaels at the time and Kyle Fletcher now, that their biggest moments are ahead of them. I very much think Kyle Fletcher will be a world champion in AEW. Whether that's sooner rather than later is to be determined. But yeah, that's a good one, man. I like that.
That's where I was leaning towards, with Shawn Michaels and Kyle Fletcher. There's tremendous similarities there, and you're right. This is Hangman's second world championship match, his second world title reign, whereas that was Hitman's first. He had just defeated Ric Flair in October of 1992. So, and here's another point. This is what we like about having a nice alternative to it all. You have a 32-year-old taking on a 26-year-old in a main event, when on the other side of things, we're seeing mid-40s versus mid-40s. Stuff we've already seen. I mean, I'll use boxing as an example. For whatever reason, in 2026, they're putting on a Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather exhibition. For what reason, I have no idea.
I hadn't seen that. Boxing has never been my thing. So
big match next weekend, which I will be watching, but no one else really cares. So I won't wax any further nostalgic about that. Let's go back to this, and then we're going to go full-blown AEW, I think, the rest of the way. Niall asks, has WWE specifically already hit as low as they can get? Just because they have that baseline loyal fan base no matter what. And whilst with Austin's turn, they came down from a far greater height.
I don't know. It sure feels like that, to my point earlier, they shit the bed on their biggest storyline of the year, and it seemingly didn't really affect much. The only thing I could think of is if, their loyal fans get fed up with them continuing to try and go head to head with AEW and ruin another company while they try to just homogenize the entire wrestling industry in their own vision. Whereas a lot of fans, even if they're loyal to WWE, I don't think they hate having that alternative. It's good for everybody. We've said it a million times. It's good for fans and it's good for wrestlers. Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, it's possible they could go lower, but I highly doubt it.
No, I'm completely with you on that. I think, and they have a handful of 20 somethings that they could promote and get themselves ready to elevate if they want to. We talked about Braun Breaker. The women's side of things is very, very strong. It's probably the strongest that it's ever been in the company, I think, from top to bottom. So good for them on that. They're going to lean on that a little bit more, and kudos for them in that aspect. I think it's just a matter now of we don't want to see 60 and 70-year-old guys like coming out in the next 10 to 15 years and choke slamming an up and comer like Undertaker did to Trick Williams. So
could you throw up Carl's comment there about Fletcher? I completely agree with him there. I do wish they would have just cemented him further as TNT champion instead of probably losing to Hangman. And what will be a good match, which it'll make him look good, and, put him in a main event spot. But yeah, just wish they would have continued to build him up.
You don't want to throw Takeshita in this scenario. He has a match next month for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
Well, to my fantasy booking with Hangman and Okada, they're kind of teasing the possibility of Okada and Takeshita at All Out. And I absolutely do not think you can have Takeshita losing right now, because all of our assumption is he will be becoming the IWGP World Champion. So if Okada's got to get beat, just have Hangman do it.
That's exactly where I would have gone. No, I was completely in agreement with you, just to have that one-off title match between those two, a champion versus champion scenario. And I think Okada's had 2, maybe 3 losses in his entire AEW duration, including to Kyle Fletcher in the Continental Classic, I think.
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah, and then I know he lost to Danielson when Danielson was champion.
Yep.
Swerve?
Did he? I think that might have been like a disqualification.
Yep. It was by DQ. So 3 losses for Okada, and one's not going to hurt, losing to the guy that you're pushing to the moon right now in Hangman Page.
And somebody brought up the point that if they are going to go with Okada Takeshita, that the story is going to be Okada winning. And I mean, it does look like Takeshita is probably going to end up going babyface here, to be a babyface over in Japan and here. And the story is going to be him losing here against Okada and then getting the win back at the C2. So I don't know, to be determined.
That'll be interesting. And a point you made earlier about Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay being on the shelf for a while, and we're now devoid of baby faces a little bit in AEW. There's also some steam that Kenny Omega's going to be taking he's going to be working a little bit less and just trying to let his body recover, which it's gone through a lot, I'd say, the last 5 years in itself, like coming over back from New Japan where that schedule's so demanding, the diverticulitis. He also had an injury in 2021 to have surgery after he lost to Hangman. So he's a completely different performer. And we've seen glimpses of greatness with him and Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Kingdom. You've also seen his match, I felt, with MJF when MJF was champion on Collision was tremendous.
A humper.
His match with Okada was fine at AEW All In. But it just goes to show, and we talked about Cena and Lesnar, if Okada and Omega, which is arguably one of the greatest series of matches in the history of pro wrestling, if we're getting that match 6 years after their primes, and now you're throwing a Cena and Lesnar scenario when they're like 15 years after their primes, what makes you think it's going to be any good? Don't get it at all.
I don't, speaking of baby faces in AEW, I don't know if you saw this, but Big Bill on Collision called out Eddie Kingston. So he is finally on his way back. Orange has been on the sideline for quite a while, so we could see him returning. Darby is still around, which I'm a little concerned about that match. It should be really good with the coffin match against Mox at All Out. They have been teasing the if you can't beat them, join them storyline with Daniel Garcia. So I'm a little concerned that he could cost Darby the match there, whereas it really feels like the true culmination of this Death Riders story is Darby finally getting the win over Mox, because obviously a year ago at Grand Slam, Mox beat Darby to get the title shot where he dethroned Danielson. So I think they're AEW, that is sitting pretty good as far as baby faces go. But it's going to be interesting.
But Eddie Kingston's timing coming back to the promotion could not be better right now. I mean, I don't know if we fail to forget, but when he left, he had just lost his C2 championship. They had just elevated him to this higher status that he had, I felt, rightfully deserved over the course of the last 2-3 years prior to the work that he had been putting in and the tremendous crowd response that he has been receiving. So now, I mean, start him in the entry level and then just see what happens, because there isn't as much ahead of him. And also, I think to your point on Darby Allin and Moxley, who wins that match? And then if Darby does take this, like what type of heights is that going to take his character?
I think he's pretty firmly cemented as like a upper mid-card baby face, which is a great spot for him. He's one of those characters that doesn't need to, be world champion. He just needs great feuds and put on great matches. That one with Claudio and the Pinfalls Anywhere match was absolutely incredible. So, yeah, I mean, to keep the Death Rider story going, it seems like you would want Mox to win, considering all the losses he's been eating lately. But boy, it sure feels like it needs to be Darby.
Like you said, it would make it 1-1. Carl's point here. If the opening match in a likely trilogy is Moxley and Allen, and this is the two of the third, what in the wild minds of those two is envisioned for the rubber match? I don't know if my eyes can take that, Carl.
Oh, man. They're sickos, man. AEW, they're all sickos. Freaking MJF spent his honeymoon costing Mark Briscoe a match against Takeshita. I was fully expecting him to be off television for a while, but nope. He got married on Friday and was back to work the next day.
Which is hilarious. And I also find this quite funny. This is not PG whatsoever, but MJF he just got married to Alicia Atute. Now, they worked together about 7 or 8 years ago on the independent scene. And there is a promo out there. His pet name for Alicia Toot back then was Tits McGee. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. You got to wonder how that marriage is going to go. Congratulations on those two. Absolutely. Exactly. We're also getting MJF Briscoe at All Out, which we'd expected.
And I would assume some sort of stipulation to that, which, MJF said anytime, anywhere, anyway. So maybe a dog collar match for the two of them could be in play for All Out.
When those two have been involved in those with the Briscoes and the FTR. Ditto for MJF and CM Punk back at Revolution in 2022. I'm going to go over the rest of the All Out card as it looks right now. We have, of course, FTR taking on Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. They brawled for a couple of minutes on Dynamite Wednesday night.
I'm excited for that one. That should be good.
The fuel is being added to said fire. In a trios match, we have Ricochet and the Gates of Agony taking on the Hurt Syndicate, which means MVP will be involved.
Yeah, I mean, this is a kind of a no-brainer Hurt Syndicate win here. I'm pretty meh on this. This doesn't feel like a pay-per-view match. This feels like could be a main event Dynamite or Collision. So lukewarm.
Speaking of a main event of a Dynamite, potentially, Mercedes Moné taking on Rio. Welcome back, Rio. When in doubt, and this is kind of a half joke, they always say when Tony Khan is in ratings trouble, he brings back Rio, because for whatever reason, she gets some ridiculous segments, and it's always been that way for whatever reason. I don't know. I just find it quite funny.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't feel like a big pay-per-view match. Rio's got her fans. I don't know if I would call myself one of them. I enjoy her work, but I mean, it's going to be a solid match. It just definitely feels like, along with, I think, the other ladies match at All Out, feels very much like a stepping stone to whatever the next thing is going to be.
Now, before we go into the remainder of the AEW card, we have a friendly reminder that for our new viewers, and it seems like our viewership right now is kind of high. If you have not, hit like and subscribe on this channel. I will dive into this now. Patreon.com/Top Rope Nation is the best way to support us. It's only $5 a month. Ryan and I have put out 3 pieces of content in the last week alone, and we have not been live on the air here in 2 weeks. We're going to be coming at you with our 4th show here coming up, I believe, on Tuesday, SummerSlam 1990, as we mentioned in the beginning. I'll be putting together 2 TRN Unplugs, one this coming Thursday, and then one next Monday, where I will be on the air with Brian W. Tosh, the host of the Sandman podcast, as we review ECW's Gangsta's Paradise 1995. And if you don't want to support us on the Patreon side of things, again, like, subscribes, always helping the algorithm. We truly appreciate your support. There's only one other match I have to tackle here. This is an interesting one from what I see. Has this been officially announced? A fatal 4-way for the AEW Women's Championship. Timeless Toni Storm taking on Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and Tekla.
Yeah, I mean, Tony officially made the challenge. Like I said, this kind of feels like a stepping stone, although, they've been teasing. Yuta has been in the ear of Statlander, so do they do something where she officially joins and wins the title with shenanigans? I don't really like that. If Tony's going to be losing the world title, I don't think it should be in a 4-way match. It should be in a 1-on-1. But if they use this match to continue a story with Statlander, maybe joining the Death Riders, I wouldn't hate that.
That I agree. Post-match shenanigans, I think, would be nice.
But yeah, other than that, like I said, it feels like we're going to get Takeshita Okada. I don't think anything has been laid out, but they should get Brodito on the card somehow. And other than that, what are we missing? Anything else that will probably be on there?
We got 7 matches, Justin, and I know that they haven't been going as much. I think 9 is like the most that they've done in the last handful of pay-per-view cycles.
Yeah, so if you do Okada and Takeshita and a Brodito tag title match, you're at 9 there.
Yeah, I think, again, with Swerve and Ospreay, like, it hurts me. Like, I'm not nearly as interested in the product as normal. Those are my 2 favorites. It's really, however, I will say that with the matches that we just mentioned, there's still a lot of meat on that bone.
Oh, yeah.
There's opportunities for folks to step up specifically, and we can wait a pay-per-view cycle or 2, and then we're going to see Eddie Kingston returning as well to pay-per-view. I would imagine either Wrestle Dream or Full Gear. I'll highlight this quick, and Carl just saying he hopes that it's a stepping stone to a story with Toni Storm and either Jamie Hayter or Chris Statlander.
I don't hate that. I think that'd be good.
No.
Boy, Toni is just on fire. I just love her so much. She's incredible. I'd keep the title on her for a while.
You have to. I would say maybe even Revolution next year.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Would be a decent time to pull the trigger on that.
Probably Mercedes should be the next world champ, and I would try and get either Statlander or maybe Willow as your next TBS champion.
Yeah, I would say one of those 2 or Athena. I don't know what in the world they're going to do with Athena right now either. She just retained her ROH women's title again last weekend at Ring of Honor's. I can't remember the name of the card.
Before Dishonor.
Yep, we had that, and from what I heard, again, another Bandito, just absolute classic with Hechicero, which shouldn't surprise anybody at all.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I absolutely need to. I'm pretty sure it's still free on YouTube because they were having issues with the streaming service. So, yeah, free pay-per-view on YouTube.
And they gave, I think, the Ring of Honor subscribers a credit for that month as well moving forward in September. So they're going to lose a little bit of money on that. But hey, I mean, it's just to keep the fan base happy. That's extremely important. Nice job on that, Tony Khan. Were there any other points of reference we were going to look at here, Justin, at all?
Well, I think we touched on everything on my itinerary, so I'm good to go, man.
Yeah, I'm just trying to scoop down through my notes quick. Yes, we mentioned All Out and HBO Max, which was an important subject to task here. That looks to be all I have from top to bottom. Yes, indeed, it is. All right. I think for the first time in the history of us, like trying to prognosticate when we're going to end this podcast, we ended on time.
Yep, we landed about right, I'd say.
A lively chat out there. So we thank you so much for that. John Hope says that Dave said it was 5.5, Bandito and Hechicero. So it'd be like 4.25, 4.5 if we were to watch it, which is still a tremendous.
2 stars higher than AJ Lee's highest rated match ever, according to Meltzer.
Can you name that match? I don't know if I can.
I looked before we got on. I don't remember what the match was, but it was 3.5. Is their highest rated match.
Okay. I'd say back in 2014, though, yeah, he probably would have rated that like 4.5 nowadays. Good for.
I want to say it was against Natalya, but I might be wrong.
Okay. Natty Neidhart, who's been doing some tremendous stuff on the independent scenes and cannot be found with the Searchlight on World Wrestling Entertainment programming.
I'm just happy to have ended the show with a shot at the E.
And on that note, I think that's where we will definitely end. So once again, chat, thank you so much for your contributions to today's show. We truly appreciate it. I'm going to hit the correct button, I believe, as we go off the air. And that is episode 395 of Top Rope Nation. We're going to go back to our daily chaos here. You enjoy the remainder of your Sunday. From an NFL perspective, American fans enjoy. Europeans, hopefully your clubs won today.
Oh, American football is back.
Talk soon. We'll see you later.
Peace.